Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to talk about how FMS can help people in all different practices, whether it's coaching or physical therapy or any type of industrial setting. So today we're going to be starting with Michele Desser. She's from FMS to talk about the values of movement screening, and then moving on to Mike Zangl, who can be talking a bit more about what it would look like in a group setting. So Michele, off to you.
Thanks, Lauren, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you today just to talk about movement screening. As you mentioned, my name is Michele Desser. I'm the Director of Education at Functional Movement Systems, but I certainly didn't start there. I'm a certified athletic trainer, and I was out in the field working with collegiate athletes, professional athletes, and even then in a clinical setting. And I got exposed to the FMS. A good colleague of mine said, "Hey, you know how we're always just trying to kind of guess on what we should be doing with people? Well, here's a solution to that. It's called the functional movement screen. And it's a 10-minute screen that's going to allow you to really take a look at somebody's movement and make an educated decision on what might be best for them. What do we need to protect them from? What do we maybe need to involve or correct a little bit? Or what are they free to train without us even worrying about it?" And so I went and I took my first functional movement screen course. And I was kind of just blown away by the fact that until that point, I really had been guessing about how people move. I was making assumptions. And this was a standardized metric that really helped me identify what was best for the person in front of me, not necessarily what I thought was best for them, but what was actually best for them. So it took all that guessing off the table. I stopped throwing darts at a dartboard, and I was able to make that really professional, educated decision for that individual in front of me. Well, I got so involved in the system, I took the medical side too, which is our SFMA, and then ultimately went to work for the company. So you could say I drank the Kool-Aid there. I really bought in, and I've really made it my life mission to spread this information as far and wide as possible. Currently, the FMS is being taught in 27 different countries globally in 22 different languages. And our goal is really to have this standardized common language amongst fitness healthcare professionals, where it doesn't matter who they go to see, they're going to go through the same standardized process. We're going to get to the same decision making. Now, the fun and the artistry, well, that comes a little bit into your training, but the actual screening process, it's standardized. We're not changing it based on what the individual looks like, their sex. We're just saying, can you do this? Can you not do it? And if you can't do it, well, here's some ways we can help you get around that barrier. So for me, it was just one of those opportunities to really take my professionalism to the next level and really benefit people the best that I could possibly benefit them. Now, the FMS, as I mentioned, is a standardized metric, and I don't want to mislead you. It's not diagnostic, but it really helps us categorize individuals to, can they do something? Can they not do something? And is it painful? And we know that pain really changes movement. So that's going to be one of those boxes where we say, if you're not a healthcare professional, well, maybe you need to find somebody for your team to bring in and help you work with that individual. But guess what? If they're able to do these movements and they're not having any pain, and maybe the movements aren't perfect, but they're acceptable by our screening criteria, then we're going to say, you know what? Goodness sakes, that person is fine to do exercises with load in that movement pattern. But maybe they're not moving appropriately in certain patterns. And now we need to step back and say, how can we help this individual? How can we help them move a little bit more effectively in this? Now, from a fitness side, it's a great opportunity just to have a conversation with a new client right at the beginning to say, hey, this is what we found. And, Lauren, a lot of times people focus on the negative side of the FMS, like, oh, here's the things that you can't do, or this was painful. But there's so much opportunity to focus on the positive. Here's all the things that you did really well. And this is where we can base our training program off this. Now, if you're in the healthcare side of things, the FMS is a fantastic discharge criteria to get people back into the activities that they love. It's going to put patterning together and really show us, is this individual actually ready to get back to those activities that they love to do? So there's multiple uses of the FMS, the functional movement screen, and how it might apply depending on what aspect of your business that you're really involved in.
It makes so much sense. I was thinking more, okay, be careful when you're in these movements. You don't want to strain too much, don't put the load, but never thought to build an entire program based on this is where you are and this is what would be healthy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's also a misconception, when you're doing the FMS, our goal is not to keep somebody in this corrective strategy for a long time. The goal is to identify, where do they really need that help? give them those corrective strategies, and then ultimately get them back to moving well. The goal is not to hang out in the FMS and correctives. The goal is to get them to higher level activity, whether it be performance training or whatever that individual's goal is. So there's a lot of opportunity on that positive side, but I don't want to neglect the fact that it does point out all those areas that maybe that individual could use a little bit of help, especially if they're experiencing pain. I think it's all too common, Lauren, right now, where people say, oh, I have a little bit of pain, but that's normal. And pain is not normal. We've conditioned ourselves to believe that pain is normal, but pain is not normal. It's a warning signal to the system. And unless that's addressed and helped and corrected along, that pain's probably just going to continue to grow and create bigger problems within that individual system.
Absolutely. That pain is not a good thing. So the way that the screen works is once you're done, does it give you daily stretches and daily movement goals, or is this really workout based? So when you're with a practitioner that can help you with this, whether it's a coach or someone else.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you can actually come at that, but the FMS is really 7 screens. And from the results of those screens, we're going to categorize or create a hierarchy of what we think is most important, starting down at a fundamental level, meaning how are your shoulders moving and your spine? How is your lower body moving in reciprocal patterns, right? So we're going to kind of start that hierarchy there from a mobility standpoint, and then transition into what we call motor control, and then up to some higher level functional loading. Now, if you find an individual who maybe is not moving appropriately, there's multiple ways you can go about it. You can work on those correctives with the individual in person to make sure that you're really prescribing the best options for that individual. Or there's great troubleshooting options that we have through the app that really create an outline of our favorite money moves of what we find generally work for most people. So you can go ahead and give them that program so that they can progress up back into those activities that they love.
That totally makes sense. Mike, to direct a question more at you, how do you see this working in a more group setting where you may be looking at an entire team of people as opposed to an individual one-on-one basis?
Right. So in my experience using the FMS, we've had to take it into large industrial settings and large corporate settings. I also have experience working with large high school and collegiate settings. So we don't have the luxury of 10 minutes per person to screen one-on-one. So over the last 4 or 5 years, we've actually taken the FMS screen and made our queuing more efficient to screen 4, 5, 6 people at a time and be able to do that, in whatever setting we want it to be. So it doesn't change the system. It doesn't change the way we screen. It doesn't change the order, but we're able to do that through different queuing, different setup arrangements with kits and all kinds of different things like that, and using an application. So we had to use iPads. So we've used, iPads to input system data immediately, which helps us do things faster. And we can use that to, again, assign programs, assign group programs, strength and conditioning programs, and just correctives in general. So it doesn't change a whole lot from the queuing, but we're able to do it more efficiently.
So when you do this group setting, how is the follow-up different? So if there's 7 screens that you do, when you can see how does the follow-through look different than with someone that you're checking in with?
So ideally, we'd like to follow through to be all individualized corrective programs, which makes absolute sense. But in a large group setting, you may not have the luxury of sitting one-on-one with every single person. So what we started doing was started grouping them. So from an aggregate standpoint, so if you're scoring your FMS and you score a certain number or within a certain range, then we group them accordingly, and we build our progressions and our exercises based on that to address those particular groups, not necessarily the individual as a whole. They're still getting their correctives, they're still improving, but on a large group setting, that's kind of the plan B when it comes to time restraints, seat time in an industrial setting. We may be working with a firefighter or a police officer who may only have 10 minutes for us to screen them and talk to them. So that's kind of our way around that issue. And it looks slightly different, but they're still getting what they need.
That definitely makes sense. And are you using CoachMePlus as a tool for this, or is it okay?
Yes, we are. We're using CoachMePlus. We use it when we actually screen. We're able to group people and screen them efficiently. We're able to assign their programs through CoachMePlus. We can make adjustments through that, and whatever the individual needs, we're able to adjust that on the fly going forward. So kind of like I mentioned, when we screen groups, they'll be grouped accordingly. And then as we go through the program, we can make slight tweaks to whatever they need.
That makes sense, because I know how Michelle was mentioning there is the generic, this is kind of a good program for this movement issue or this movement strength, and those are all in the app. So being able to just assign a program and it'll automatically populate how often this person should be doing it will alleviate some of that pressure from whoever was running the FMS.
Yep, exactly.
So do you guys have any things that you see as a benefit to having this movement screen beyond people just being able to improve? Is there a safety issues, especially with police and firemen and people in that kind of position? How is this keeping people safer at work and in their fitness practice?
I mean, I can definitely speak on the firefighting and the police officer side of this one. A lot of the different departments and different public safety workers, they use, I think Michele mentioned it, as almost like an entry level test. Are you ready to work? Are you able to return to work? Are you able to do certain movement patterns to keep you safe and modify that risk of injury as much as possible? And I think that's a huge thing because a lot of people guess. We had mentioned before, we don't want to guess on movement. We don't want to just throw darts out there. And when you're working with the public safety, you need to make sure they're ready to go, because if they're not safe, then we're not going to be safe, whatever they're trying to do. So I think that's a huge benefit. And just from an education standpoint, a lot of people just don't understand screening so much and they don't know how to utilize it. So if it's within an application and it's easy for them to understand, that's a huge benefit for just fitness professionals, safety professionals, strength coaches, and whoever may be using it.
Yeah, and I could just tag on to that too. Everything Mike just said is 100% on target. And here's just a little bit more background of where we came about and how we got the screen. We know that there are specific risk factors to injury. Now, when I say that, remember, I'm not saying you are going to get injured. I'm just saying that there's risk factors. Some of those risk factors include dysfunction with movement, asymmetry with movement, pain with movement, ankle mobility, and your inability to stand on one leg. All 5 of those risk factors are screened within the functional movement screen. And again, whether you're doing it in a group setting or you're doing it one-on-one, the screen itself is not taking that long, and you're gaining a lot of valuable information to help this person modify, or we call them our modifiable risk factors. You can change those risk factors and set them up for success in life. So when you're talking about how this can benefit an individual, well, a lot of times people aren't even aware that they're moving inappropriately and they're going out there and they're doing things. This is just a great way to expose that and really approach it from a positive standpoint, but really having an effect on those modifiable risk factors.
That absolutely makes sense. So I know I trained as a volunteer firefighter, and there's a lot of movement up and down. You have to be able to go up ladders and jump through a window and get immediately on your knees and have a pike to like pull and make sure there's not anything hidden in the, like, there's so many different types of movement. So to be able to see where you need to continue to improve and things like that. The risk is already high in these really physical jobs, that to be able to even mitigate any risk could be a complete game changer for the entire force.
Absolutely. Safety. That's always the number one priority for everybody, right? Especially in those fields of service. And if you can affect a positive change to that, then you're overall, I always say the brain is really smart. It's going to do what you need to do in that given moment. But if we can set them up for success to maybe recruit a better pattern, then we're helping them the best that we can.
Absolutely. So I guess I do want to just touch on one more thing, and that is to be able to use the FMS screen in CoachMePlus, you do need to have the certification through your group functional movement screen. What does that process look like, and why is it important to have the training and not just be able to click through an app?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. It's important simply because I think a lot of times people see something on the internet and they try and mimic that, but there's certain things that we're looking for with the functional movement screen. And I think it's worth taking that education to really understand, for you to understand why we're looking at certain things, why we're looking at them in a certain way, and how we're going to score that appropriately. So I think having that education and that knowledge, plus the certification to back it up, goes a long way from a professional integrity standpoint, especially when you're working with your clientele. There's multiple ways actually you can become FMS level 1 certified. We have just the online course. It's a self-paced online course. It's about 5.5 hours long. And it has some low stress quizzes just to make sure that you're retaining the information as you go along. A lot of demonstrations and examples, and it's a great way to go ahead and complete that education on your own time and become certified. We also have our virtual one-day courses where we come in for 8 hours and there's an instructor on site working with individuals, taking them through the screen. And then there's live interaction and Q&A with the instructors. So just a little bit more of a personal approach to take them in level 1 screen. And then of course we have our live courses that we're getting back to right now, where you can come on site, actually get the repetitions, work through the process, get the experience of the hands-on going through the screen with our instructors. And that is also a day event. So 3 different ways that you can become functional movement screen level 1 certified, all 3 of them, just a wealth of knowledge with them. And here's the cool thing, Lauren, once you've taken the course once and you become certified, you can come back and you can audit it again. You can at no additional charge. So you can come back as many times as you want. It's a member benefit. We want to make sure people really use this information, understand it, and we want you to come back and spend more time with us.
And add on to that, I highly recommend the in-person certifications too, because what you just said about getting that hands-on experience and getting the coaching cues and understanding exactly how to screen somebody is huge, because you might do it once, but it takes some repetition to be able to get that down. And if you're not screening appropriately, then it really does us no good. So the in-person screening and the courses are money. So it's awesome to be able to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny all the different things that can come up in a practical setting, and a lot of those are headed in that live course there. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that really does cover the information I was looking to learn about. If you guys have any last minute thoughts that you want to share with the audience, that would be great.
Yeah.
First of all, everybody watching, thanks for your time and just spending a few moments with us. But I just encourage you to take this next step forward professionally, to really just add that, I said it before, that integrity to your business. You know, individuals who are coming to work with you and see you, it's an honor that we have to be able to work with those individuals, and they're entrusting their health and safety to us. And this is just such a integral part to everything that I do now, and so many fitness and healthcare professionals around the world, of just making sure that we're doing what's best for the individual. You know, we've said it multiple times, we're taking guessing off the table and we're finding the biggest opportunities for that individual. So I just encourage you to seek out the education. The app is just this tremendous resource through CoachMePlus to be able to take that information and put it into a play in a very easy way for you. That's, you can communicate with your clients and you can keep them on track. But I just encourage you to take your professional game to the next level and really adopt screening into your practice.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll see everyone soon.